Hi, beautiful souls. This is Sadhana. Welcome to my channel. Today, I wanted to share with you some of my thoughts on the Druid Animal Oracle and the reasons why I have repurchased the deck. Initially, I purchased this deck to work with the Druid Craft Tarot and also just to add to my collection of Animal Oracle decks. I really find that Animal Oracle decks help to bring out something in other tarot decks. And this is a very, very special deck for so many reasons. Many layers to this deck that don't appear obvious if you first purchase the deck. On Amazon, this deck is available in both versions. And just as an aside, I believe the Druid Plant Oracle on Amazon is only available in the large version on the left, which is the one I totally recommend you purchasing. So in the small version, if money or just space is an issue, then this is definitely still going to be a wonderful deck to have in your collection. You get quite it's not a super sturdy box. No, this is the right way up. These cards have been trimmed, so I am going to show you the difference between the trimmed cards and the untrimmed cards. And then you have a small guidebook as well as the extra cards. So regardless of the version that you buy, you do have, I believe, 4 extra cards where you could either do a collage, you could put a photo, you could do your own original artwork and include this in your deck. So you get a few extra cards with each of them. And this is the trimmed version of the deck. I did edge it in blue to match the back. And so we will have a look at these side by side shortly. And then in the large version, so you have this option as well with the Druid Craft Tarot and perhaps with the Plant Oracle, but I haven't seen the smaller version of the Plant Oracle, which is also a great deck, as I've mentioned. The difference in color between this deck and the Druid Craft Tarot is, what I want to say, the Druid Craft Tarot is way more saturated. So you would expect them to match really well, but there is a very different feel between this Oracle deck and the Tarot deck. So this is the larger book, which is in English, all in English, and then it also comes with a sheet for a spread, and then you have the cards sitting in here. So you have a white border as well as the border that includes the OMs around the edge, and I'll speak to that in a few moments. Okay, but first of all, let's go to the guidebooks, because I think this is one of the main reasons for purchasing this book here. Okay, in the large guidebook at the front, you have a reference to the page numbers as well as the order that the animals appear in the deck. And the reason for them being, at least in the first time you go through the cards, appearing in this order, there's a reason for that order. And that is explained in the introduction to the book. And then you have a really beautiful introduction explaining how and why this deck came to be and why this deck is needed in this day and age. The inspiration for the deck and the connections between the past and the present that are so very important. And you can see by some of these subtitles, it's just a really thoughtful introduction. In the smaller guidebook, so this introduction that happens here on page 4, page 5, page 6 is the contents that you have in here that begins on page 15. So the first 14 pages are not included in the smaller guidebook. And so you have here page 15, 16, 17. And so that's what you get in the introduction in this book, which does give you a little bit of background information. So that's a really positive thing. Beautiful Scottish Gaelic blessing here. All right, and then moving on to the cards. So this is really kind of important, and I think this is what makes the difference in having either the large guidebook for the tarot deck or either of the oracle decks, and that is this abundance of information that you get with each of the cards. In the smaller guidebook, you have the pronunciation. So the pronunciation key in the larger guidebook is a sheet on the back. It's not, unfortunately, they should have included it here, but I guess this publication came out much later. So you do not have the description. So for example, the blackbird this card shows a blackbird sitting on a rowan tree. It is twilight and the first stars are just appearing in the sky. In the background, we see the entrance to an enchanted cave. Druid Dew is the bird of both the gateway and the forge. So the meaning that you have here is what's included right here, and then the reverse meaning is here. And then what is included in the large guidebook is a lot of information about the blackbird, historical information, and different stories that are connected with the blackbird through the Gaelic and the Celtic tradition. And so for each of the animals, you have at least almost 4 pages. Some of them are more than others. And the card inset is in black and white. And around each, you have the same border that is on the cards around each of the pages. So it's really beautiful. Yeah. And then at the back of this book, there's even more stuff. So it's really a well thought out book. The spreads, just to take the time to go through the spreads. And these are definitely spreads that you could use with the tarot deck and the animal deck in some creative combination, because there's just so much here. You have information about sacred space and directions. It's just a really, really thorough guidebook. And then at the back, this is a really great reference. So you have, so this kind of helps to understand why the cards are presented the way they are, why they're not in alphabetical order and things like that. So you have certain animals that are about shape-shifting, certain animals that refer to healing and different things like that. So, and different animals are connected to different elements. So this is a great little reference, this chart here. And I was talking about that pronunciation guide, which is also at the very back. So here it is. So it's very easy to reference that. And then you have this whole other wonderful bibliography. What is included in the smaller guidebook is how to use the cards. So you get this section here, starting a reading. You do not get the illustration of the wheel, but you do get this little section here on choosing cards and asking questions. And there is a 3-card spread and that wonderful reference that I talked about. So the qualities or the abilities or the elements. So that chart. So this is a really kind of important chart to have open when you are including this deck, either just doing single draws or you're using it with other decks. So that's there. So let's have a look at the cards themselves. Before we go through the cards, I'd just like to share with you this little bit from the introduction. The cards have been drawn using the principles of sacred geometry, a science of great importance to the megalith building pre-Celtic Druids, who employed it extensively in the building of stone circles. Each image incorporates the same use of a pentagram, circle, and square. And the border of the animal cards conveys a message in Ogham, the tree language of the Druids, which I believe is the same for the plant oracle and perhaps for the tarot as well too. I'll have to look at my tarot deck later. The names of the animals are given in English and Gaelic, mostly Scottish, but with some Irish. Each animal has many different names in Gaelic, and we have tried to choose the most evocative. The pages dealing with the tradition of each animal are designed to convey as faithfully as possible the traditional lore associated with that creature, and the keywords and interpretations have been derived from the reading of that lore. The animals are presented in a sequence starting with the blackbird who stands at the gateway, the place of beginnings, calling us to adventure and change. And in the background of this card, you can see an enchanted cave. Druid Dew is the bird of both the gateway and the forge. And then we move on to the 4 oldest animals. So there's the hind, the stag, just beautiful artwork, the bear, and the fox. And I just wanted to read to you just this little bit from the guidebook for the bear. And of course, this information is also available, I believe, in the app. So if you have the app, you should have the full guidebook available to you. So you don't have to buy the paper guidebook. The keywords for the bear are primal power, sovereignty, intuition married with instinct. And this card shows a bear standing by a cave entrance with a mace at its feet. Such a mace was found by archaeologists near Stonehenge. It is midwinter, the time of Alban Arthwan, the light of Arthur, at the winter solstice. A crown lies in the foreground as we see the pole star shining brightly above the constellation of the Plough, also known as the Great Bear or Arthur's Plough. Bear, or Arsht in Gaelic, connects you with the very deepest of your ancestral roots. Here, at this level, you are in touch with the primal mother, the bear goddess Artio, who will defend you fiercely from all danger. And of course, it goes on and on. It's such a beautiful, it's just such a well-written guidebook. And I can see, glancing at these cards, the newer version, or perhaps the deluxe version, is slightly more. I can see in the fur of the bear there is a difference in color in the printing, and that may have to do with perhaps a change in printer, or perhaps this version is actually on a better cardstock. Okay, so then the 4 oldest animals. From there we go to the boar. I love this card. I have a very similar image of when I was living in Whistler in British Columbia, Canada. I have a photo of a bear about this far away from me with, and actually the dandelions were right underneath the bear while the bear was eating the dandelions. Beautiful memory. And so in the guidebook, you have information for the scene for each of the animals. But I don't believe we have information that explains the sacred geometry. So where is the circle, the square? And perhaps if you slightly blur your vision, you'll be able to pick up on that. But there's a lot of, I said earlier, layers and unseen energy that is being reflected from the stack. So that makes it, really, really powerful. I have many favorite animal decks, but there is something really special about this one. And it's a beautiful deck to read as a single draw. So if you have an altar where you pull a tarot card perhaps, or an oracle deck, this deck just works really beautifully. And then we have the raven, which has a completely different energy from the blackbird. Swan. So while trimming the deck I agree, it makes the artwork pop. And I love looking at the blue edge that I can see from the angle where I am. There is, I understand that there is something lost in trimming off the ohm border. Such a great eagle picture. Will Worthington's art is just really, what's the word? I don't know. I hate to keep repeating what I said, but there's a depth. That's what it is. There's a real depth to his artwork. And I have done some readings with this deck in one of my combo videos for sure. So I can link that above and below. Isn't that a cool card? I really like this card. The card shows the original hare of Britain, the Arctic hare, which was later replaced by the common brown hare, probably imported by the Romans from the plains of Central Europe. It is nearly dawn, but we can still see the moon in the sky. In the background stands a dolmen, symbol of rebirth, and in the foreground we can see the lapwing's nest with the eggs which were said to have been brought by the hare. Harebell, hare parsley, and hare foot clover grow close by. The hare brings us benefits of balance and intuition, of promise and fulfillment. The hare is a creature of the goddess, the moon and the night, and yet it also represents the dawn, brightness, and the east. Did I say I'm a little bit in love with this deck? I really appreciate the depth and the sharing, the depth of sharing as well too. And different animal decks have different layers, and I think really need to celebrate the depth of history with this deck. Beautiful otter card. And where I live, you know, I really count my blessings because the wilderness is close and I don't live in a major city. And if you live somewhere in the world where that feels lost, tapping into the energy of these decks is really quite powerful. And then at the end of the deck, we have 4 dragon cards. So 1 for each of the elements. And here's the water dragon, the earth dragon. And you can really see the energy of these dragons connected to certain cards of the tarot. The air dragon. Or suits of the tarot, you know. Their energy is just so strong. And that's why I really like to use this deck with a tarot deck. This is this wonderful connection. And then the deck ends with the seal. The card shows a gray seal on the shore of the sacred island of Iona, the Isle of the Druids. A pale rainbow shines over the Atlantic, and on the horizon we can see the outline of the uninhabited island called Dutchman's Cap. This card calls to you from the seal people of the sea. The song of the seals upsets and frightens many who hear it. Its mournful and human sound stirs the heart of the listener to the core. It is a call from the sea, from the unconscious, from the depths. It calls to us from the waters of our birth, from our beginnings on earth, from our brothers and sisters in the animal realm who are closer to us than we dare imagine. We fear this call because we feel we may be drowned, overwhelmed by our feelings. But do not let your intellect imprison your heart, as the human imprisons his sulky spouse, the magical seal. Opening yourself to the promptings of the unconscious, of the feminine, of your dreams, and of your longings will bring transformation, healing, and love into your life. While the content of the guidebook is really powerful, there is no reason why you can't draw in other associations and other interpretations in these cards. The backgrounds are so well drawn. So perhaps the rainbow might be calling a different kind of energy and connection with surrounding cards. And so I would bring that in and read the card intuitively. And depending on the reading, depending on the day and the deck or decks that I'm reading this card with, will affect whether or not I refer to the guidebook or refer to some of the things that I've memorized from this particular guidebook, or whether I will, draw in other knowledge as well too. So thank you for joining me for this look through the Druid Animal Oracle. I look forward to reading your comments below. Stay well, my friends. Namaste.